everyone, welcome back to QSR Nation, your weekly source of food service marketing and business strategies for success. Here are your hosts, Josh, Beth, Tony, and Grant from the PFS Brands National Headquarters in Holt Summit, Missouri.
Welcome back to QSR Nation, and here's part 2 of our conversation with Alex Merturi.
Absolutely, it does, because it creates a particular environment and that's what you're trying to create. You're trying to create an environment of people that love the environment that they're in and just enjoy working for you.
Couldn't agree more. Now, I want to switch gears a little bit here because you've been in the QSR area so long. Just kind of pick your brain a little bit about marketing. So for those that are kind of having trouble generating more sales or generating positive sales, what are some good marketing tips that they can implement to kind of, rev up those sales?
So I'll tell you, whenever I purchase existing QSR stores, I'll tell you, first and foremost, you have to worry about operations. So I always say you gotta first say to yourself and be self-aware to say, you know what? How are my operations? Am I in a good place? Good. Now, if you're in a good place operationally, then you got to focus on the marketing. And I'm big lately, as of late. So don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking marketers and digital media. Digital media is the future and everybody's on it. But what happens is a lot of these marketers that get into the digital media, they almost like, they blow it out, and it's like becomes white noise, right? So I have this whole idea that's like, okay, the digital piece is still going to exist and it's going to be part of it. But now what's going to happen, I think, is we're going to go into this street fighting now, the old school street fighting where you're actually going out on the field and you're sending somebody that smiles with good energy to help build your catering business. And you're handing out flyers and you're handing out coupons and you're engaging with businesses in your local trade area. I think that's, to be honest with you, that's what I do in my own stores. Is I'll have a kid that works a computer that shoots out emails to incoming teams near a college, for example. Like I've got a college not too far away from me. So what he does is he gets on the computer and he sees what soccer teams are coming to visit. And he shoots an email to the assistant managers, so it's all public information, and he says, hey, we're running a special here and we'd like to feed you guys. And sure enough, we get a ton of accounts just doing that. That's, and just having somebody anticipate these teams coming in or things of that nature, and just that one-to-one touch as opposed to the blanket of the digital marketing stuff.
Go ahead.
That's just, it's pure genius, and you have to break it down sometimes to those smaller things of, it's easy just to go out there and reach out to your school districts, your just local chamber of commerce of what people are coming into your town, and just think about all those dollars that you could possibly be missing if you're just not reaching out to them and having that personal connection for your business. I mean, it's dollars that you're just missing every single day.
Yeah,
and it's huge because it's you're not only are you offering them a service that they need, they're looking. Believe me, they need to eat. So you got to figure out a way to capture that.
Yeah, no, I really agree with you, even though I'm a digital marketing manager, but I think everything is really coming full circle. Email was the way, but we get so many emails now, we're desensitized to them now. So now it's more revolving to the personal touches.
Yeah, and we see that with our business development teams, and a lot of stuff. I mean, handwritten notes, personal phone call scares people almost anymore. That showing up in person, looking at someone in the eye, having an actual conversation.
It's true. We've lost it. It's like it's got to go. And I really feel like it's going to come back to a full circle like that. And whenever I think about catering, because catering is, you get some catering orders. It can boost your percentage basis up so high on a weekly basis just by getting a couple of $100 or $200-$300 catering order. It's huge, right? But just trying to understand that is, and it always has been, a relationship business.
Absolutely. So, I mean, if they don't know you, they're not going to trust you with an event, and taking care of a large group of people.
Right, and on the marketing side, you got to give too. Like, I'm a big believer in that. Like, I give a lot away to local communities. I'm always being part of that, trying to build sales. So, my grandfather used to say, you got to give to receive, and it's the truth. You got to give. It's constant.
Well, that local connection to the community is also key, because as you have people coming and going, that's always a good business to be in. But the folks that are there every day, that's who you got to take care of the most. And the neighborhood marketing, Grant's a big fan of the guerrilla marketing strategies and stuff. Those are really key to really getting a stranglehold on your market, so people know that you're the guy. You're who they go to. You're who they depend on. And if someone says, "Hey, who do I need to get this catering through?" or "Who would you suggest?" that you're one of the top two names coming out of their mouth.
That's right. Absolutely right. And that's look, and Grant's right. That's what it's going to take. I mean, what a lot of businesses do is when sales go down, they'll go, okay, well let's cut marketing, and that's like the beginning of the downfall. You gotta dump more money into marketing. You can't stop.
Love hearing
Preach,
that.
preach.
I'm sorry, we had a slow connection. Can
The
you repeat that again?
the thing is that the minute that because I get it, right? So you look at it, you look at your numbers, and you're looking at your data, and you go, well, look at this, X amount of percent for this, and you're trying to shave points here, quarter point there, and that's how we always do it. But you got to be very careful when it comes to marketing, because you've got to drive traffic, and if you're not driving traffic, I always say to myself, okay, before I make a decision, I'm like, okay, Alex, how are you looking at this? Like, if I cut this, am I playing defense or am I playing offense? And you're better off playing offense than you are defense, to be quite honest with you.
Yep.
So, are there any additional directions that you think that people should be looking at in terms of marketing aspects? I mean, we've discussed some of those things there, but you mentioned the digital isn't going away. So are there certain things in that realm though that you still feel are pretty strong that you like in your mix?
I'll tell you one thing, and Grant might know this better than I do because I've just been dabbling in it now, and that's geo-targeting.
Yeah.
So you've got a business, and you can kind of open up a Facebook or an Instagram page, and you can kind of hit a particular demographic, which I kind of like, with like a coupon or some sort of a driver or some sort of a special to get that consumer in. I really like that. I think because that's more central to each individual, right? Which I think is pretty cool. But that's kind of what I've been dabbling in now. And I don't know, Grant, are you familiar with that? Or
Yeah, actually, and kind of dovetailing off of your approach to those college teams that are coming into your areas, you can actually geo-target those sporting events too. So it kind of 1-2 punch there, and you can geo-target, whatever, like the stadium they're at, the fans there, obviously a lot of them are from out of town too. So you can shoot them, if they're on their smartphone, you can have ads that pop up for, hey, stop by and try one of our sandwiches today or something like that. So there's a lot of different opportunities with geo-targeting, but that's one that would specifically work with one of the examples you already have shown. So.
And for those individuals that are looking for a cost-effective way, that is the easiest way to make sure that you are reaching your exact target market with the least amount of money or risk that you're trying to take when it comes to marketing dollars.
That's correct. And that's something you can also track to see if it's working, right? Mm-hmm. So somebody comes in with a particular coupon, you can make a little note like, hey, this person, we drove in this traffic. Because I'm a big, I love tracking everything.
Exactly.
So whenever I'm doing marketing, I want to know what's working, right? So if I'm dumping money into this particular piece of media, what is my percentage of return, right? So that's, and sometimes when you're not tracking it as a franchisee, you got to be careful because in the early days, this brings me back to when I first started, I was trying everything, right? And I never tracked anything. And I was literally wasting money on particular marketing things that I had no business putting money in. So then I said one day, you know what, let me just track it. And literally I was able to cut my marketing money in half because I was tracking what was working and what wasn't. So then I was more effective. So that's huge.
Right. Yeah. You can't track it. You can't optimize it.
Right. And
yeah, exactly.
You can't manage what you don't measure.
Right.
We hear that around here all the time, So
oh yeah.
It's a great opportunity to get in there, and especially with digital, like you said, the insights that are available. So much tracking, and you can, and of course, determining what your ROI is very flexible. To one person, 0.5% return is a good investment because it achieves other parts of their goals. So other people, they need much higher. They need 30% or 80%, and 150%, whatever it is. It just all depends on what your your measurement of effectiveness and
So I think like the meat, like, you know, and you guys might know this better than I do, but I always say, you know, if I'm doing, so I'll do these FSIs, right? You guys, have you done these before? These like they're like direct mail pieces.
the freestanding inserts. Yeah.
There you go, freestanding insert. Yep. So the freestanding insert. So I'll do, let's say, I'll do 100, for example, right? Very geo-target, you know, using the U.S. Post Office and just kind of trying to maximize it, maybe 200 or 300 different businesses, right? So I always say, and I'll just use 100 as a number. The industry, I think, says, you know what? If you do 100 and you get 5 back, believe it or not, that's a success, which is pretty crazy, but it's true, right?
Right.
But in my book, I go, well, you know what? If I do 100 and I get 20 back, that's a rock star. That's unbelievable. And that's what I'm always trying to find, can it get me 20%? Can it get me 15, 20% people to walk into my restaurant? Because you're trying to change human behavior, and that's hard, right? So you're trying to get somebody to get those 2 feet into your door, and that's not easy, but you've got to be aggressive enough to try to do what you can using freestanding inserts or digital media or going out and doing the guerrilla marketing. So.
Yep, I think we could all talk about this marketing all day, but kind of moving on here. This is a question we like to ask a lot of our guests. But what is one book you would recommend to read and why?
I'll tell you. You know, I read a lot, and if I had to, it's probably, I don't know if it's QSR related, but I'll tell you, it's a book that I love that I always said helped kind of change my thinking as a leader. It's Dale Carnegie, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. I love that book. I mean, sometimes I'll put it on, and it's on YouTube. It's for free, so if your listeners want to listen to it, because as leaders and even as running teams, you know, even in my early days, I was always worried about the numbers, because we all have to worry about so much, right? Marketing, team building, you know, sales, whatever, paying bills, you know, all this sort of stuff. And I always said to myself, my God, Alex, you're just going to worry yourself up like crazy. And literally, after I read this book, it gave me some insight, and it made me a better leader, because not to worry as much as I used to. And it's just everything will work out. You put yourself in the position the best way you can to make every opportunity the best way you possibly can. And at the end, it's interesting, it works out. You know, you think about it, if you stay the course, right? You have to stay the course, be positive and push through. But kicking the worry habit, guys. I have to be honest with you. That was the hardest thing for me to do.
That's great. That's great. I'm definitely gonna listen to that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, because
it's awesome.
I mean, that's a struggle, no matter what industry you're in. You know, I mean, you may not own anything. You may be, you know, just a team player somewhere, and you know, and just overwhelmed with life. I mean, so that's an awesome book. Everybody should probably read that.
Yeah.
It's just human nature to overcomplicate things or overthink about.
It's the truth, and we always and it's funny because they put this quote on there, and he said, you know, Dale says, 90% of what you worry about doesn't happen, and it's so true.
It's true,
like we sit there and we circle this thing in our heads, and we create this kind of worst case scenario, and we forget at the end it doesn't happen, and how much of a hole we burned in our stomach worrying about it.
Definitely true.
That extra 90% of your life you saved, you could have, you know, saved on antacids too, right?
Antacids too. It's true.
This podcast brought to you by Tums.
That's it. Done. There's the plug. I love it. Check in the mail.
Okay, so Alex, we really enjoy asking this question as well. We kind of touched on it a little bit, but mainly just for 2019, what do you feel is the marketing or industry trend that we're going to see next year?
Look, I think you know, convenience is going to be a huge factor. Delivery, you know, all my stores are, you know, we're working on we're probably about a week away from doing delivery. You know, I think that convenience is huge, but also, you know, it's different than it was 5 years ago. You know, 5 years ago, if you had a decent product, you were doing good. You know, just that short of a time ago, and now with competition in the QSR space, like if your team is literally not doing what I call the cues, basically just smiling and saying thank you and have a nice day, like those little minute details that are going to make all the difference in any up and coming brands or anybody that's running locations, retail, whatever. Like those little cues in the next few years are huge, because people now have choices everywhere. And if you're not giving them a good experience, they're not gonna hang in there. They're not gonna come see you anymore.
It's honestly
So I'm
just
always
going
telling,
back to basics.
and I'm always telling my staff, I'm saying, look, we just need to make sure we're smiling, because I'm big on, like, I get into this whole thing about hiring and how to hire and my keynote talks and things that I look for. But it's funny because I'm always looking for natural smilers. Like I always share this. This is pretty funny, but I've got cousins, I've got relatives who I love to death. I love them. They're the greatest people in the world, but they don't smile naturally. They just don't. They're just, and I'm like, my staff's always like, Alex, I have this girl who's interested in working. I go to them right away. Does she smile? That's my first thing. That's what I want to know, because people behind the counter, you have to be a natural smiler. It's unfortunate, but it's the truth. And people don't want to see miserable faces behind the counter. So you gotta figure out a way to find team members that are happy, that smile naturally, and that can make that connection with consumers. Because
I agree completely. I mean, we have this secret shopper program, and that's, we get asked, why are we asking and waiting so much of it on the engagement? Did they greet you? Did they thank you? Were they sincere? I mean, those things are really, really key. And for franchisees and team members that don't get that, we have to question sometimes if we have the right partner. Because that people have choices, like you said, and their choices are growing exponentially day by day,
rapidly.
And so to have that loyalty, to have that connection, that human piece that says, hey, I like exchanging my hardworking dollars with this person, and not just because the food's great or even good, but because my experience there makes me feel valued. And that is, I think we'd all completely agree with you that is going to be a huge piece moving forward, that people are going to just want to feel appreciated more and more.
They are. That's the difference now, because I think even 5 years ago, like, if your product was good, like, you're okay, you're gonna be fine. But now it's like it's a whole different ball game. A lot of people are getting in the QSR space, so you need that, and that, in order for you to have that, in order for you to get people that smile, in order for you to get people to connect with customers, the number one thing is, as a leader, as a manager, as a franchisee, you have to create an atmosphere in your QSR space. Whatever retail industry you're in, you got to create an atmosphere that people enjoy. That's where it starts. Because if you actually create that atmosphere, it naturally channels to the customer. I almost don't know how to describe it, but they're just happy to work for you, and their environment's happy. It's not like where they're just not in a bad mood or they're just not happy. If they're happy in your organization, you don't even have to train it, Anthony. It goes automatically. It's pretty insane.
Yeah, great advice for sure.
Absolutely, and when you walk into one of those places, you feel the difference.
You feel it. You know it. I always say, let me walk into anybody's anybody's retail store. Let me meet their staff. Let me meet what's going on. Let me get the vibe, and I can sum up an owner for you, or whoever's running that. Well, it's interesting because it starts from the top all the way down.
Absolutely. Sure. So that kind of leads me to, really my final question, which is, what's the one piece of advice that you would give either a new franchisee or someone considering opening a franchise?
So if you want to open a new franchise, you got to remember, you're taking a system from whatever franchise you're doing, and you are kind of policing that system. Now, you can add your own little twist. You are an entrepreneur when you're running this system, and I always say is, you got to make sure that when you do it, please make sure that you love people. That's number one, right? Because you can't get in this QSR retail game unless you love people. It's impossible. You won't be able to build sales. You won't be able to build teams. So don't get into a franchise, if you feel like you just want to work solo, right? I mean, I'm sure there's some solo franchises out there. Go with that direction if there is such a thing. But don't go to the direction of of trying to build teams. And make sure that, look, read some books, read some leadership books. There's some great books with John C. Maxwell. He's got some great information on how to connect with teams and showing people. Look, my thing is you have to be ready to take a system and follow it, because what happens is sometimes you might get an entrepreneur who will take a franchise, and what they want to do is they want to fight it, right? You put them in a box, right? And they go, okay, I'm in a box, and they want to elbow that box left. They want to fight it all day long. Then don't do a franchise.
Yeah.
You gotta follow the model. It's been proven. You can nudge it a couple of times. That's okay. That's healthy. Nudges are healthy every once in a while. but you gotta stay within the system, okay? And you gotta follow the system. Now, if you don't want to do that, then the franchise is not for you. You should do your own. Do whatever you want on your own. And if you want to take that gamble, that's fine. But if you're doing a franchise, you got to be willing to be open to following a system and staying within that umbrella.
Great advice.
Yeah, it's just great, solid, practical advice. Now, Alex, as we start to wrap up, if people have any questions for you, or if they want to bring you in as a keynote speaker, where can they reach out to you at?
Sure, thank you. So you can reach me at alexmerturi.com.
Okay.
I'm also I'm on Instagram. You can reach me at Alex Merturi, or my email. It's amerturi@outlook.com. I've been doing keynote talks across the country at different retail brands, just talking about culture and creating teams and training and hiring and motivating and retention. So, yeah, you can reach out to me there. That's it.
We definitely enjoyed this conversation. We will include all your URLs in the podcast description. So.
Thank you, guys.
Definitely. It's been a great conversation.
Yeah, we truly appreciate all of your insight. I mean, everything that you said today is it's super impactful, and we hope that all of our listeners will actually go out there and visit your website, and especially invite you to come and speak to you or speak to them, because it's just been fantastic information.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I really do appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you, Alex. We'll stay in contact and probably have you on again some point in the future.
Sure, absolutely. I'd love to. This was fun.
Great.
All right.
And for all of our listeners, we'll talk to you next week. For Josh, Beth, Tony, and Grant, see you then.
Today's episode is brought to you by Blue Taco. It's the franchise your location needs for simply Southwest goodness. Visit our website at thebluetaco.com. And remember, it's BLU. Be sure to stop by next week for another episode of QSR Nation. And be sure to check us out online at pfsbrands.com/podcast.